Hey everybody, it's Beth. Welcome to Infinite Garden. This week, it's Sunday, it's rainy. I'm not in the very best of moods, but I am getting ready to go for my second bridge lesson. And Chewy's here on the floor in her little special case and she is snoring, so you might hear that throughout. I'm just gonna get ready and I'm gonna catch up with you a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the stuff that has been going on in our nation and just be with you for a while. So if that sounds good to you, this is going to be a relatively low-key video. I'm going to talk about a couple of new products that I have tried out that I haven't reviewed yet. Specifically, I have Glossier's You Doux here, and I have Makeup by Mario's Ethereal Eyes Moonlight palette. So I've got a couple of new things to talk about, and I will talk about them, but I'll also be mixing in some other points of view and kind of thoughts throughout. So that's the kind of video we're talking about today on this rainy Sunday. Why don't you get comfortable and just chill out with me for a little while. One of the things that this simple human mirror has told me or taught me is that I need to go see somebody pretty soon about my skin. I'm using Pat McGrath's Divine Skin. This is a biphase rose water treatment. I love it. I love it. I put it on after I've fully moisturized, and I usually put quite a lot on. It's a little bit, I think it has glycerin in it and rose water, and it's really nice before makeup. My skin's been super dry and I've had to throw everything at it, and I think I've got it back in good shape right ahead of winter, so that should be okay. I do still have some dryness. My skin has been super dry overall, which I think is both kind of like a seasonal thing and also maybe a hormonal thing. I recently, oh my gosh, is my light going crazy? I put in a dimmable LED bulb in this overhead fixture, and I've noticed it kind of like goes crazy. I hope that's not too gloomy in the background. Oh, it's pretty gloomy. Let's see here. Because that is kind of the vibe. So how's everybody doing? I have specifically avoided talking about politics too much on my channel. I am somebody with political opinions. I know that everybody else has them too. I haven't really wanted that to be part of my channel. I'm using Jones Road's What the Foundation. As I get older and I've had more years, more elections, all of it, I kind of have developed an opinion about other people's opinions, which is that they're kind of not my business. And that because each one of us gets one vote and each vote has equal standing, focus on my vote and I do what I can do. And I know that the pendulum will swing back and forth over time with the hope that eventually we'll arrive at a right conclusion for most people. And I think that's maybe naive thinking on some level, you know. I think that in my lifetime, I was born in 1978. In my lifetime, there's been good progress on some issues and there's backward progress on others. So I don't even know what to think about our whole system and the way this collective group project, my best friend calls it a group project, kind of with like all the negative opinions that can go along with what happens on group projects. And I gotta be honest, I'm not thrilled with the way things went this time in the United States, and I'm working through my feelings on it. And the reason why I'm bringing it up here now after the fact, I didn't really say much about this prior to the election for reasons I already stated. I don't really necessarily know that it's my business to tell you what to do with your vote if you're an American. And I don't know what guides your decision making, right? Everyone has different issues that matter to them. And so we do our best accordingly. And we're not really given great choices. I bet most people, depending on where you land on the spectrum, probably agree with that, is that we're often working with undesirable options and doing our best from there. And I think a lot of us felt that way this time. But I'll say this, one thing that I have learned in my years, such as they are, mid 40s, I've got more to live, I hope, if I'm so lucky as to be able to live more years. I've got more ahead of me and I've got some years behind me. I think you can hear Chewy, right? I know this microphone picks up her snoring. It's very comforting to me. I hope it's not annoying to you, but it's gonna be there. I'm not gonna kick her out. One of the things that I've learned personally is that it's really important to be involved in politics locally. For the United States, and I don't know what it's like in Canada, I don't know what it's like in the UK, although I know you have all, and Ireland, I know you've all gone through, there's a lot of political kind of turmoil everywhere, so maybe you're all feeling this. I'm gonna try to keep it general. I have found that local politics are a sweet spot for me to be involved. And this is something that I learned during my time working at the city of Detroit. I've talked about this before on my channel, but if you're new to my channel, you might not know this. I started my channel in December 2020. And at that time, I worked for the city of Detroit 3 years when I started my channel, and I stayed for about 3 more years after that. So I worked for the city of Detroit for about 6 years all told, and I was in an appointed role, which means that it's different from civil service. Civil service usually means that you are protected, your job it will withstand administration changes. So in the case of a city, if you're a civil servant, even if you have a mayoral election, your job will still be pretty secure in the next administration. For a lot of people in Detroit, that wasn't the case during the last administration turnover because of the bankruptcy and emergency management. There's a really good documentary on, I think, Netflix. I don't know where we watched it. Maybe it was Prime, called Gradually and Then Suddenly, I think is what it's called, and it's about the Detroit bankruptcy and how they worked it out. I watched it just recently, maybe a week ago, and that was really interesting. That occurred in 2013 and 2014, and I started working for the city in 2018, but in an appointed role. So in that case, someone in leadership, either the mayor or the head of a department, gets a certain number of appointees that they elect, they just put in a role, and you don't have to go through some of the same rigor in terms of your onboarding, but then you're also not protected in any way. You're at will, and then it's understood that your position will not survive the next administration. So I was an appointed person. I started off in the Housing and Revitalization Department, and what that department does is it helps to create affordable housing as well as resources for people who are experiencing homelessness. And that can be everything from emergency shelters to supportive housing long term. It includes working with Veterans Administration to help homeless veterans receive places to live. And it also involved working with local developers to build and construct new housing units. And I was brought in to oversee a team of people focused on that work to make sure we were planning to build thousands and thousands of new units for people in the city of Detroit. And that's what I signed on for. Hold please. So I'm using Makeup by Mario's Moonlight Ethereal Eyes palette, which I can talk a little bit more about if you want. It's very cool toned, and I'm finding it nice to use, but I also find that it's possible for me to make kind of a muddy mess on my eyes. So I like it, but I don't like it as much as I was hoping I would. I've been using it a lot for the last couple of weeks. I'm gonna use it now. It can get really dramatic with that deep blue color and some of these deep smoky grays. But I'm gonna go sit in a living room on a rainy Sunday afternoon and play bridge. So I'm gonna go for a super wearable look here. So that's what we're doing. Anyway, I tell you about my work because it was for me a way to feel like even if things weren't necessarily the way I wanted them in the wider world, that I could still show up and use my skills and my, industry to try to do something at a local level that made things better for people, which is something that I care about. And I found that for me, just holding beliefs and wanting things to be true, but not actually doing anything about it, for me, created more anxiety and more distress. There was something about actually pitching in and getting into the trenches, and it really was the trenches, that made me feel like at least my work was adding to the collection of things that I cared about. Care very deeply about access to housing. I had moments in my childhood when I was younger, when my parents divorced, when my whole world became very unstable. And there were times when we weren't necessarily sure how we were going to go on. My mom was entirely responsible. It was kind of during the 90s when it was a little bit harder to hold people accountable, and the concept of co-parenting wasn't really happening in my household. So my mom wound up managing, and we had moments in our lives that were very touch and go. And so I care very much about people and their ability to stay off the street and have a decent, safe, clean place to live. I myself never had to access any of these resources, but we got really close. And if not for the generosity of immediate family members, it would have been us. I tell you this to say that I have an enduring sensitivity for this particular topic, and it meant a lot to me to be able to contribute. So I just used these two colors. This is like the taupe color, and then this color here, which looks pinky a little bit, but the reality of this color is that it's actually quite gray, and when I put it on, it really reads as like a purpley mauvey gray, even though in comparison in the palette, it kind of seems like it's pinkier. In reality, that's a pretty gray color on my lid. I tell you about that not because I think that the only answer is to take a job, you know, doing work that you're particularly emotionally attached to, but I also learned at my time in the city that the voice of the people in the community was very strong. Very, very strong. In the path that we took to create affordable housing, that path ran through many approvals bodies at the city. So for instance, if you had a project that you wanted to build in a particular neighborhood, a piece of land that you were building on might not be zoned for mixed use multifamily housing. It might be zoned for like a gas station because you're dealing with 1950s zoning rules. So the act of getting new zoning entitlements to be able to build multifamily housing with affordable units, that path ran through city council. It ran through both the city planning commission and then city council. And part of that process always included public comment. And I know I'm describing something that's extremely common. We're talking about local government, we're talking about nuts and bolts issues, but what I'm trying to say is that what I observed in my almost 6 years of being at council on a weekly basis trying to get projects moving forward, what I observed is that the voice of even a single person, the voice of a single person who either took the time to show up or even just call in and express opposition or support, the impact of that single person's voice could push a developer to make a change and, you know, change certain details that they were able to change. You know, sometimes people would ask for things that weren't feasible, but if something was, you know, like a color or the use of brick or entrance off a certain side or whatever it was, if people had substantive concerns and they brought them up in those public bodies, they were heard. And it was really common for the developers to have to go back and revisit or even, you know, just work with the community through the issues that the community was seeing. There was an opportunity for people's voices to be heard and to make a change. You didn't just have to go work for the city like I did to make the change. You could just participate from wherever you were. Retired people. There's a woman who calls into Detroit City Council regularly who is clearly, she has some sort of disability that impacts her ability to speak clearly, and she calls in every single week. Everybody in city council, all of the committees knows who she is. They give her the time she needs to make her comment, and she is participating. She's participating. So much of what we experience day to day is a result of our local government. I moved here by choice. I'm not a Detroit native. On Thanksgiving, which is, what day is that? Oh my goodness. In 2 weeks, it'll be my 10th anniversary. I moved here when the city was still undergoing its bankruptcy proceedings and was at, on some level, a lot of people will say, a historic low. Locals might not agree that 2014 was its low point. A lot of people think there was already a comeback coming at that time, and that may be true. But when I moved here, the streetlights didn't work. People had scrapped the copper wires across the city in the streetlights, and the streets were dark. The parks weren't being mowed, garbage wasn't being picked up. It was a non-functioning municipality. And in the 10 years that I've been here, there's been a turnaround in that regard. It's like turning, you know, a cruise ship at sea. It's just slowly turning around. And now the city's at the point where it's really, actually, I think in some ways, functioning a lot better than major American cities elsewhere. There was a recent celebration earlier this year about how the city of Detroit had attracted basically $1 billion worth of new housing development. All of that is like mixed income, affordable housing. So it's housing for the people that need it most, especially in a city like Detroit that has so much economic need. Even though I can look back and say from 2018 to 2023, when I worked for the city of Detroit, there were 2 different federal administrations that were in power during that time. There was a change in that period of time. One of those administrations I didn't support, one I did support. The entire time, though, I was working locally. I was focused on what was around me and making that better. And all of the people who didn't work with me, who weren't employees of the city, but were either developers or subject matter experts contributing to those projects, architects, designers, even some of the small businesses that became tenants, on the ground floor level in the retail spaces, all of those folks were focused locally. What results from that level of focus is that I know my neighbors better. I know my community better. I'm more informed about what matters to people because I'm actively hearing in either community engagement sessions or in these public forums. I was hearing competing voices for and against. I understood what people wanted on a day-to-day human level. There's so much focus on the federal level of government and like caring so much about all of that. And of course it's important. I know the federal government's at the top, and a lot of the resources that cities and communities use are pushed down from the federal level to those communities to use. So, I'm not saying it doesn't have an impact. I'm just saying that, there are other ways to have an impact. I'm gonna bet that there's a chance you can make an impact on a local level, even if it's just showing up to community meetings, even if it's just calling in to city council proceedings and speaking for or against something that you want. I have a feeling in your community as well as in mine that there's somebody listening, somebody in power is listening. I was flabbergasted by the direct pipeline of public comment to administration action that I observed while working for the city of Detroit. It was really astounding and forever changed the way that I think about these things. I had been trained to really focus on federal politics, getting the vote out, doing all of these things related to federal level politics. And again, the pendulum just swings back and forth, and you have some years where your party's in and some years where your party's out. And what do you do when it's out? Do you just sit on your hands? No. The years that maybe the certain things that you care about the most aren't the things that are the new administration's priority, there's a good chance that you can continue to advance the things that you care about in your local community. And Chewy agrees. She agrees. She's sleeping soundly right now while I say all of these things. I don't know. I hope that I'm not coming across as either, too preachy or, at the worst case, kind of maybe breezy about everything that's going on. I assure you, I do not feel breezy. But what I am not is defeated. What I am not is demoralized, and what I am not is disarmed. I'm leaving to go play bridge in about an hour and a half, so I'll end up refreshing my lips at some point anyway. I am gonna put on some of this Glossier You Doux. This is a new Glossier scent, and hang on one second, let me pull up the notes. Top notes are violet, middle notes are Palo Santo wood, frankincense and myrrh, so very incensey, love that. Base notes are ambroxan and ambrette, so you get that warm skin scent. The violet notes are, I think, somewhat apparent. It's like a green violet leaf almost. I definitely get the Palo Santo scent and some of the warm incensey woods. It's nice. I find that this scent lingers a long time. Like if I put this on, later take the sweater off and hang it up in the morning, if I smelled my sweater, I will smell this perfume on it still. So it has incredible lasting power. I think that's because of the ambroxan and ambrette. It really has incredible sticky power. And I wonder if it's because of the frankincense and myrrh as well. Those are, pretty enduring scents. So I like it. It's good. It's warm. It's perfect for a rainy, cozy day. I do feel like it has a little bit more interesting than Glossier You, and interesting in a way that I like. I haven't tried the other one, the Glossier You Rev. The reason I didn't try that is because it has some fruit notes that I tend not to like. If you watched my video last week on the Manicurist Green Flash Home Gel Nail Kit review, I had a number of colors that came with the starter kit, and the only color I hadn't tried yet on my nails was the color Pale Rose. And I tried that this last time, and this is how the Pale Rose looks. It's kind of a clear neutral. I put this on Friday, and today is Sunday, so I think it's looking pretty good. Anyway, I hope that you don't mind that I shared a little bit more about, you know, politics and my point of view. If you find that you can no longer support my channel because you disagree with me, that's obviously your choice. My overall point of view is that most people agree on most things, and I think that we've been trained to fight each other when we disagree, and I don't agree with that. I hope if we see some things differently that we can still find ways to connect. But I also understand the current environment that we're in right now is somewhat not understanding of complexity and nuance. And I regret that. I wish that were different, but it isn't at the moment. If there's anything else that I can do in addition to acting locally in my community, I like to think that this YouTube channel and my personal choice to make these videos in my little house, in my little room, and broadcast out to the whole world, my hope has always been that I could find a way to connect and to reach out and to make people feel seen and heard. And, you know, I know it's a risk to delve into divisive politics with that as a goal. My hope is that I could talk about it with you in a way that didn't increase division. Please let me know your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It helps so much. If you have a point of view, I would love to hear it. You know, we don't do nastiness here, but I'm very open to hearing people's points of view. So feel free to drop a comment if you like. If you want to hang out again, I post videos most Sundays when I have the energy and the time. It's been really hard this year. 2024 has, honestly, you guys, 2024 has kind of kicked my butt. It really has. I know I've been spottier with my video releases on Sundays. I haven't been able to. Either my calendar has been so busy, or I've been on and off with a cold or something like that, and I just haven't had it. I'm gonna keep pushing through, but I hope you understand that I'm just a human with a full-time job doing my best to keep my beloved YouTube channel going. So I appreciate any support you guys have to give. I love this channel. I love all of you. I hope you're all doing well out there, and I hope you have a great week ahead. Thank you so much for watching. Talk soon.